The History Channel gave no explanation for the peaceful demise of the PawnStars program in 2025. Music. Corey, his own son, decided it was all a hoax and made a permanent transfer to Mexico. For allegedly stealing millions of dollars while she was asleep in a hospital, Rick's mother is suing him. Additionally, Rick is frantically attempting to rebuild with PawnStars 2.0 after losing his mother, father, and kid in a matter of years. However, industry sources claim that his true motivation is to avoid going bankrupt. Born in Lexington, North Carolina, on March 27, 1965, Rick Harrison was already burdened for years by his family's past. While his mother, Joanne Rue Harrison, attempted to maintain order at home, his father, Richard Benjamin Harrison Jr., had the severe discipline of a Navy man. Sherry, Rick's older sister, passed away when she was 6 years old. There was a silent void in the household after that loss. The family had to relocate once more when Rick's father was assigned to San Diego by the Navy in 1967, when he was just 2 years old. It was the beginning of a life of packing and unpacking and never being able to settle down. Every relocation brought with it new faces and schools. Rick gradually developed the ability to quickly adapt as a result of it. Things became considerably more difficult when he turned 8. The seizures began at that time. About once a month, he would lose control, and the episodes would occur. He occasionally spent days in bed because his body's muscles hurt so much afterward. He lay still in a dark room, attempting to heal as other children ran around outside. The opportunities to play, make friends, or feel normal continued to fade as time went on. However, over those extended hours of bed rest, something unexpected occurred. He grabbed books. After that, he continued to pick them up until reading became his obsession. He subsequently said that reading kept his mind active, filled the void, and provided him with a source of affection when his own body refused to comply, thus saving his life. In those same years, he discovered the Great Brain. He read all 10 of the novels as if they were written specifically for him. Tom Fitzgerald, the protagonist, was a bright young man from Utah who was constantly coming up with a plan. Rick appreciated Tom's thinking, his ability to see chances and angles, and his willingness to push himself when things didn't go his way. Something similar started to form inside Rick. Even though everything seemed to be against him, he began to consider money, deals, and ways to make things happen. He learned from the books how to view challenges as puzzles and how to strike a balance between ambition and an open understanding of the potential repercussions. Those stories provided him with a feeling of purpose during a childhood that seemed uncontrollable. However, he was still a child dealing with suffering and annoyance. Additionally, he started consuming marijuana when he was 14 years old. For a brief period, it made him feel as though he had escaped. In the same year, his parents sent him to treatment. Counselors cautioned him about the risks he was taking during his regular sessions. Sitting in those rooms made him confront himself in a manner he hadn't previously, even if those were difficult times. He gradually realized that all of the options added up. There was a price for every shortcut. He began to believe that discipline was necessary if he was to have any chance of creating a better life. School turned into yet another challenge. He missed so many days due to the seizures that he was unable to catch up. He concluded there was no use in staying by the 9th or 10th grade. He left because schools in the late 1970s were not designed to assist children with problems like his. It had nothing to do with his failure. The reason for this was that life had already forced him to follow a new road, and he quickly began to create that path. He was living in Las Vegas and working at swap meetings by the early 1980s. He was the first adolescent in the community to sell phony Gucci handbags there. He sold them for roughly $100 after purchasing them for about $10 in Chinatown, New York. He earned $2,000 on a few weekends. That changed the course of a teenager's life. He experienced the excitement of making something from nothing. And he discovered, through music, that competition arises in any thriving business. His profits fell when cheaper imports from Asia began to appear. Rather than give up, he found a fresh lane by driving to the Los Angeles garment area. It was fake Jordache jeans this time. He sold them for about $40 or $50 after purchasing pairs for about $15. After he changed course, the money began to flow in once more. He developed that willingness to change course. Life took a different turn around the same time. When he was 17, his girlfriend Kim became pregnant. After experiencing early heartbreak, they had their son Corey on April 27, 1983, just a few days after Rick turned 18. He decided to wed Kim. Additionally, their youthful marriage became the talk of the town in a place like Las Vegas. Adam, their second son, was born 2 years later. However, Rick's constant work and the stress of being a young parent caused the marriage to fall apart. After their divorce in 1985, Rick assumed custody of both sons' music. Now that he was responsible for 2 lives, that decision made him feel even more pressure. Then came the year when the Harrison family had to start over as a whole. All that Rick's music parents had worked so hard to build was destroyed in a real estate crash in Kentucky in April 1981. With just $5,000 remaining, they were expected to pay for food, rent, a move, and whatever else could come up. In the hopes that the city would provide them a new beginning, they set out for Las Vegas. Las Vegas was smaller, rougher, and not at all like the vibrant tourist destination it eventually became. When the Harrisons arrived, nobody knew music. However, they opened the gold and silver coin shop in a matter of weeks. With only 300 square feet, there was hardly enough room for patrons to enter. At night, Rick repossessed cars while working there during the day. On other days, they barely made $100, but they continued to turn up. During those years, the city also had an odd law. Until the population reached 250,000, no new pawn shop licenses could be granted. The population was approximately 25,000 in 1981. It would take decades to attain that amount, according to city officials. Rick was not going to wait. He tracked the population by calling the city statistician once a week. He waited for 8 years in this manner. Finally, the figure reached 250,000 in April 1989. Rick quickly obtained the license at City Hall. Everything changed in that instant. That same month, the gold and silver pawn shop at 713 Las Vegas Boulevard debuted. It was theirs, even though it was still tiny. The store made money in its first year. One transaction at a time, it was becoming into a local monument by the mid-1990s. The numbers increased over the years. The store was lending out over $3 million annually by 2005. The typical loan amount ranged from $75 to $150. Approximately $700,000 was their annual interest revenue. They were working on thousands of transactions, handling everything from priceless collectibles to shattered jewels. When the family first arrived in Las Vegas with just $5,000 and a pressing desire to rebuild, it was an amazing ascent. For years, Rick Harrison worked to alter the public's perception of pawn shops. His goal was to get them away from the image of the dark back alley, which made people think of peril rather than commerce. He made a brief appearance on Insomniac with Dave Attell back in 2003, and that small amount of publicity ignited the store. Retaining that spark, he continued to push. He repeatedly went to production companies and said that he wanted a family drama set inside a legitimate company. He envisioned something both truthful and enjoyable. He initially chose the name Pawning History, but after reviewing it, a Left Field Pictures employee recommended a shorter term. The small wordplay in PawnStars made people smile, and the song seemed snappy and appealing. The History Channel finally agreed after years of pleading. Additionally, the show debuted on July 19, 2009. For Rick, that moment altered everything. His perseverance did more than just make a production come to life. It altered the perception of his industry among millions of music fans. The show quickly became comfortable. When it debuted on July 19, 2009, it immediately rose in the ratings as if it had always been there. One episode attracted 7 million people by January 2011, making it the most watched broadcast on History channels at the time. With 7.6 million viewers per episode that year, it surpassed Jersey Shore as the second highest watched reality show in the United States. The blend of humor, history, and familial music tension was well received. The show gained international recognition thanks to that blend. It soon aired in 38 languages in more than 150 countries. It evolved from a straightforward series to a cultural movement. The gold and silver pawn shop altered when the performance caught fire. The store used to get between 70 and 100 customers per day before PawnStars. By 2010, that figure had risen to over 1,000, music, every day. By 2013, it had risen to about 5,000. For travelers who wanted a small taste of the entertainment they saw at home, it became a popular destination in Las Vegas. That same year, Rick opened an expedited pawn counter to handle the throng. In order to expand the showroom to over 15,000 square feet, he invested $400,000 in renovations and hired nearly 30 new staff members. Despite having so much room, the main cast was required by filming regulations to work the counter only while the cameras were off since patrons needed privacy. Nevertheless, the store continued to operate and customers continued to arrive. The chemistry between the actors gave the performance life. Behind the bar, 3 generations stood, each contributing a unique energy. Up until his retirement in 2017, Richard Harrison, known to everyone as the Old Man, kept an eye on everything. Having been there since he was 13, Rick became the focal point of the store. Big Hose, also known as Corey, began at age 9 and eventually took over as manager. When Austin Russell, the friend everyone called Chumlee, joined at age 21, he contributed the crazy moments and jokes that, music, helped to temper the more acerbic fights. Because they were based on actual history, the gradual fights between Rick and Corey and the taunts directed at Chumlee felt authentic. For over 10 years, viewers were captivated by that link. The cameras weren't the only source of Rick's income. On the show, he struck some of his largest agreements. His $250,000 purchase of 12 original illustrations from Maurice Sachs Where the Wild Things Are was one of the most outrageous. The illustrations were unique and impactful works of children's literature from the middle of the 1960s, music. While purchasing them, Rick appeared astonished and expressed his inability to accept what he was doing. Nevertheless, he was aware of the worth of that work. A silver collection weighing 3,372 kilograms was the subject of another enormous transaction. Rick paid $111,000 for the tune. On the broadcast, he clarified that silver has purposes beyond aesthetics. Because it is the best electrical conductor, it passes through TVs, laptops, and phones. The collection included both industrial demand and metal value, with silver selling for between $25 and $30 an ounce. The 1932 Lincoln Roadster, which cost $95,000, followed. There were only ever 112 of those vehicles produced. At auction, the model might fetch up to $170,000, making it a crown treasure of its time. Rick was well aware of what he was seeing. He observed the future cost, the engineering, and the rarity. Additionally, he spent $90,000 on a Les Paul guitar. Les Paul's wife, Mary Ford, used to own this guitar. Because it had a direct connection to one of the pioneers of music, the item's backstory made it more valuable than a typical old guitar. It was a piece of living history, in Rick's opinion. The Robosaurus was one thing he was unable to bring home. It was a 45-foot-tall, 31-ton metal monstrosity that breathed fire. $1 million was the cost. It was a tad beyond his budget, Corey joked. Even though it was more of a spectacle than a product, watching it on the show turned into an unforgettable experience. Rick's private life progressed through several marriages away from the showroom and the cameras. In 1982, he wed Kim Harrison for the first time. He was just 17. Adam, their second son, was born in 1983 when she was carrying Corey. Due to their youth and lack of preparation, they got divorced in 1985. Later, Kim claimed that Rick prioritized his career over their personal lives, and the two became so distant that they hardly spoke. In January 2024, their 39-year-old son Adam passed away due to a fentanyl overdose. Later on, Rick issued a public warning regarding the drug crisis. In 1986, he entered into a second marriage with Tracy Harrison, which ended in 2011. Together, they have a son named Jake. Although Tracy maintained her privacy, documents revealed that the couple's relationship deteriorated over time. The gap grew too great because Rick was constantly filming or managing the store. Without any arguments or drama, they got a calm divorce. Jake developed his own role in the program while being close to both of them. In 2013, Rick remarried, this time to Deanna Burden. In Laguna Beach, Danny Coker officiated their wedding. Rick became the stepfather to her 3 kids, Marissa, Tiana, and Serena, as a result of this marriage. Up until 2020, the two remained together. According to court documents, their opinions and preferences diverged to the point where they were unable to remain married. Everything was resolved in private. The split, Rick subsequently told TMZ, was mutual. Even after the divorce, he maintained contact with her daughters. In 2021, he wed Amanda Palmer for the 4th time, but it ended in 2023. There was no public dispute, very little publicity, and little information. In less than 2 years, the marriage gently faded and terminated. Then, in March 2025, Rick Music made an announcement. Angie Palashkin, a Las Vegas-based registered nurse, was his fiancée. He said that they had never fought and that they got along great. Early in 2024, they began dating. He used a 6.5-carat pear-shaped ring from his own pawn shop to pop the question at a winery in Casablanca, Chile. He added that although he had not signed a prenuptial agreement in either of his prior marriages, he was still hesitant to sign one for music. Although he acknowledged that marriages do not often work out, he felt that they should endure forever. Shortly after losing his son, Adam, he got engaged. It signaled a peculiar combination of hope and sadness in his life. The peaceful rhythm of a typical Las Vegas day was disrupted on March 9, 2016, when Chumlee's residence was visited by police carrying a warrant related to a sexual assault claim made by a gold and silver pawn shop employee. Everything changed when they discovered what was within. Things that shouldn't have been there were found in room after room. 12 guns were found hidden throughout the house by the officers. A variety of firearms, some still loaded, including rifles, shotguns, revolvers, and handguns. Stacks of ammo, methamphetamine, marijuana, and drug paraphernalia were also discovered. Small quantities of clothing and drugs were strewn around other rooms, but the most of it was secured in a vault on the ground floor. The law was apparent, but Chumlee later claimed that everything was for personal use. Gun ownership was illegal for anyone under the influence of restricted substances. Thus, everything was taken by the officers. Music, thinking that drug usage may have had a role in whatever transpired during the purported encounter, they even obtained a warrant for a blood sample. The legal storm started once the raid was over. Chumlee was unexpectedly charged with 20 felonies, including violations involving the possession of drugs and weapons. He posted a $62,000 bond after spending one night in jail. Chesnoff, his lawyer, attempted to counter that the search was unlawful, but the evidence was overwhelming. Chumlee realized in May 2016 that accepting a plea deal was the only option to stay out of jail. He consented to enter a guilty plea to both a misdemeanor attempted music, drug possession charge and a felony weapons charge. He was given a 3-year probationary period, counseling, and the requirement to turn over any items found during the raid. The felony would be removed from his record, leaving only a misdemeanor, if he remained sober until 2019. He might spend up to 5 years in state prison if he fell even once. The History Channel said nothing during this entire ordeal. Without recognizing anything, PawnStars continued to broadcast. The network was pulling away to safeguard the brand, industry sources murmured. The scenario was too dangerous for public discussion due to the overwhelming volume of felony charges, even though the sexual assault claim was dismissed. Fans noted Chumlee's abrupt quiet as he disappeared from events and interviews for months. The network just continued to shoot. While one of its stars endured the aftermath off-screen, the show continued. And then there was another blow. Following a protracted battle with Parkinson's disease, Richard Harrison, popularly known as the Old Man, passed away on June 25, 2018, at the age of 77. Over the years, viewers had seen him wane, his movements slowing, his voice growing quieter. Everyone was moved by Rick's message as he broke the news. He claimed to have lost a teacher, a parent, a buddy, and more. In its own homage, the History Channel thanked him for his charm and expertise in transforming a modest pawn store into a well-known institution in Las Vegas. His latter years were spent at home with his loved ones. And there was a sense of melancholy when the show resumed following his passing. Despite Rick's best efforts, spectators could see that he was grieving, especially since they had been working together since 1989. Fans were taken aback by Richard's unexpected choice a year before to his passing. When he revised his will in 2017, Christopher, his youngest son, was excluded. It was made quite obvious in the document that although he loved Christopher, he had purposefully decided not to support him. There was no explanation given. Executive Rick spoke to it as a private matter. Some thought they had been apart for a long time, while others conjectured that Christopher was already financially secure. Joanne and Joseph were designated as beneficiaries. Because the change was made so close to Richard's final year, it raised countless questions. In 2022, the family strife became even more intense. Rick's mother, Joanne Harrison, sued him, claiming that years ago, when she was in the hospital, he had deceived her into signing away her 51% interest in the pawn store. According to the lawsuit, she did not comprehend what she was signing because she had been in a coma at Valley Hospital in 2000 or 2001. She asserted that her cash, silver, and equity investments were never properly accounted for. She also mentioned an unexplained $3 million loan that she thought was obtained with her collateral. After Richard's death, the family struggled with trust, grief, and past scars, as her filing painfully depicted. The catastrophe then got worse. Adam, Rick's son, was discovered unconscious at a Las Vegas music guest house on January 19, 2024, following a recent incarceration. He was just 39 years old. According to the Clark County coroner, accidental fentanyl and methamphetamine toxicity was the cause of death. Lethal concentrations of both drugs were discovered. For years, Adam struggled with addiction, going in and out of treatment while Rick worked to get him back on his feet. However, relapse kept happening. By the time it was all over, he was unable to break the pattern. As the country focused on the escalating fentanyl problem, his death caused a wave of grief and thrust his family back into the harsh limelight. Rick talked candidly about how the loss affected him. "There's nothing worse than losing a child," he remarked. On multiple occasions, he discussed getting Adam into treatment. After a little period of sobriety, he would slip once more. Rick claimed he never thought it would turn out this way. Those who had experienced the same suffering were moved by his candor. His message resonated with many parents. The interviews served as a silent reminder of the internal devastation that addiction can cause in a family. Rick took on a new position following Adam's passing. He started advocating for tighter border controls and harsher penalties for drug dealers in response to the fentanyl epidemic. He claimed that the nation needed to improve because fentanyl was moving across borders with virtually little opposition. He went so far as to say that anyone found selling fentanyl should be sentenced to life in prison since they were disseminating poison. He claimed that crossings had once decreased by 98%, praising what he considered to be effective border control during the previous administration. His voice propelled him into political discussions he had never participated in previously, adding gasoline to a burgeoning national controversy. Then another transition came in February 2025. After 16 years and 23 seasons, PawnStars took an indefinite break. There were no negotiations to extend the contract with the History Channel once it ended. Rick declared that there was no current contract for the show and no intention of reshooting. Globally, fans were in disbelief. The final season ran until April 2025. The long-running show that has shaped a portion of reality TV history was abruptly put on hold. Nobody knew how long it would last or if it would ever come back. Corey Harrison added another twist months later. Music, he declared he was relocating to Tulum, Mexico, and would not be returning to the show when filming concluded in June 2025. He claimed that since they had all been portraying characters, he thought it was time to stop. He led a more sedate life in Tulum and started considering starting a barbecue restaurant. His exit eliminated one of the show's well-known characters and increased uncertainty about the future. But Rick continued to dream. He started promoting PawnStars 2.0, a revised version. He had interviews with several networks, including HBO. He remained optimistic despite the lack of confirmation. With a new idea and possibly a new cast, he aimed to restore the brand. Even the prospect was a glimmer of optimism for devoted followers. Rick's net worth was estimated to be between $8 and $9 million by 2025. He created that through real estate, eateries, goods, appearances at events, and, of course, the store that continues to attract thousands of customers annually. He received over $1,000 per appearance at some events. Licensed to Pawn, his book, went on to become a hit. His economic empire demonstrated his perseverance in the face of setbacks and criticism. Still, he was troubled by the past few years. Joanne, his mother, died in 2024 at the age of 85. He had lost both his father and his son before that. In addition, he had to deal with the dispute pertaining to his mother's property. One loss after another, the agony accumulated silently. Even though everything around him changed, he continued to move forward, attempting to strike a balance between responsibility and grief, and carrying on the family legacy.